Welcome to Village Church Connections. I'm David Pavey. When you're on the road and in need of a place to spend the night, it's always discouraging to see a sign reading, "No vacancy." But it's hard to imagine the emotions of Joseph and Mary after traveling anywhere from 70 to 90 miles, depending on the route they took, finally reaching Bethlehem, only to discover that there was no room for them at the inn. Not only had they been on the road for perhaps 4 or 5 days, but Mary was pregnant and due to give birth. Riding that far on a donkey would be rough at the best of times, whether or not you're pregnant. I imagine the donkey felt the same way. But to ride that far, reach your destination, and then have to camp out in a stable would be difficult in the extreme. But there it is in black and white in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, verse 7, "But there was no room for them at the inn." Perhaps there really was no room. Others had come from afar to register for the census. The town was full. Or perhaps the innkeeper didn't want those kinds of people there. No Samaritans or Nazarenes. After all, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Even if they could claim ancestral roots in Bethlehem. That would never happen in our country, of course, not in this great nation, proud of the welcome we extend to immigrants. Or would it? I read the other day that the governor of Indiana declared that there was in effect no room at the inn for a young Syrian family who wanted to settle there. The couple, who had a 5-year-old son, had worked with U.S. officials and nonprofit organizations for 3 years to obtain refugee status and move to the USA. And finally they arrived, only to find the no vacancy sign in Indiana. Fortunately, they eventually found room at the inn in Connecticut, where they received a personal welcome from the governor. There's a song that asks, "If Mary and Joseph came here today, would we receive them or turn them away?" Well, believe it or not, some would indeed welcome them. For several consecutive years at Christmas, Travelodge, a British hotel chain, made a special offer which they said was to make up for the hotel industry's failures more than 2,000 years ago, when the original Mary and Joseph had to settle for a night in a stable, according to a company's website. They promised free accommodation to couples who share the first names with the couple from Nazareth. The offer was good at any one of the chain's 322 hotels in the United Kingdom, from December 24 to January 5. Joseph's and Mary's quickly signed up for the free night stay, the only requirement being that they provide proof of identity and give evidence of a long-term relationship. Those couples who satisfied the criteria were given a free night in a family room for 2 adults and 2 children. Oh, and the Travelodge added in jest that the hotel would provide parking space for a donkey if needed. By and large, however, our culture finds less and less room for Jesus. We've been telling God to get out of our schools, get out of our government, get out of our lives. No Bible or prayer in our schools, please. Remove the 10 Commandments and nativity scenes from public buildings, please. Happy holidays, not Merry Christmas, please. TV shows and movies that promote profanity, violence, and illicit sex are acceptable. Music that encourages drugs, murder, suicide, and satanic themes is fine. But no room at the inn for Jesus, please. The Apostle John tells us that Jesus came to his own people and they rejected him. They mocked him, whipped him, and had him crucified. No room at the inn was just the beginning of the rejection that the Messiah experienced. But then John gave the good news. But to all who believed him and accepted him, he gave the right to become children of God. They are reborn, that is, born again, not with the physical birth resulting from human passion or plan, but a birth that comes from God. I like Emily Elliott's Christmas carol. Thou didst leave thy throne and thy kingly crown when thou camest to earth for me. But in Bethlehem's home was there found no room for thy holy nativity. O come to my heart, Lord Jesus. There is room in my heart for thee. The author uses the last two lines to pull the singer into the narrative, making this a hymn of personal commitment. O come to my heart, Lord Jesus. There is room in my heart for thee. So as Christmas is upon us once again, let's get beyond the trimmings on the tinsel and be sure we give Jesus his rightful place. Why not take a quiet moment to run a heart check? Is there still no room at the inn? Or has the Christ of Christmas found room in your heart as he has in mine? He's the reason for the season. And thank you for tuning in once again to Village Church Connections.